Here we go. Welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show here on site from Memorial Stadium in Bloomington, Indiana. Andy Olson here with you, as well as Illini Inquirer's Jeremy Warren, getting you set for week one. Illinois is already 1-0, but we're in week one officially of the college football season after a week 0 game and week 0 win for Illinois over Wyoming. We're going to break that down as well as preview what we might see in this Big Ten opener, Jeremy. It's gotten very hot as the sun has come out, but that's going to go down. The lights will come out. It's a primetime Friday night game for the Illini. It's a Big Ten opener too, and you know, I don't know if this is going to have implications for the college football playoff that's going to be expanded, but I do believe this one will have implications for which one of these teams makes a bowl game.
Yeah, I think both these teams would love to be, 2026 when that new college football playoff, the expanded one, will come around. They hope to be in that mix at some point, but this is a big game for both programs. Indiana trying to figure out if last year was an outlier. They had so many injuries and just poor play. Iowa came out when Indiana was ranked in the opener and just crushed the Hoosiers, and really their season never took off after that. But before that, Indiana had been one of the risers in the Big Ten. They'd won 14-7 in the 2 previous seasons, been to good bowl games, but last year it all came back down to earth with the 2-10, 0-9 Big Ten season. Illinois got their feet wet, right? That's the advantage they found out. They got to evaluate themselves, but Indiana also got to evaluate themselves. And Barry Loney's new offense, the Illinois, got to hide some things given that they routed Wyoming in that one. But Indiana looking to bounce back. Illinois looking to climb in the Big Ten. This is one both these teams seem to need. Now, maybe at the end of the year, if Illinois loses this game, they find a way to bounce back and get to a bowl game. Maybe Indiana, if they lose this game, find a way to bounce back and get to a bowl game. But I think both these teams are looking at this game as one they need to win to be what they want to be this year.
Let's start with a quick recap of that 38-6 win over Wyoming. I will say I was 4 points off in the score prediction. You were really close as well. I went 38-10, so I was real close. We will get to our score predictions for this one. I know, I really am, because I won't get to do that probably too many times this season with the experts. We'll get to our score predictions for this one later, but let's preview this game. Not exactly sure who's going to start at Indiana at quarterback at the moment. It's either going to be Bazelak or Tuttle taking the snaps for them. But before we get to that, I'm already losing my train of thought. Wyoming, what did you make of Barry Loney Jr.'s offense in that one? It was really our first shot to see it. We got to see some 11-on-11, but again, they didn't show too much, but we were able to see enough, I think, and it was progress over last year where the offense was.
Yeah, I think it was a nice start. I don't think you thought, oh, that's an offense that's going to run through the Big Ten, but I think just like the spring game to me, they showed a little bit but didn't show a lot, and they were able to do that because Wyoming, one, I don't think Wyoming's very good this year with all the transfers that they lost, but two, Illinois was able to run the football, stay ahead of the chains. Chase Brown scored early and often in that one, so they didn't have to get too creative. I don't think they had to show much on film. I think you're going to see a lot more today, but I think you saw a quarterback in Tommy DeVito that did what he had to do. He just had to dink and dunk. Wyoming really stayed back in zone coverage, really conservative for them. They didn't want to get beat over the top. So you didn't see Illinois push the ball downfield. That's still something I think they have to prove is, do they have the wide receivers that can get separation? And how does Tommy DeVito play against a good secondary? And I think he's going to have that test tonight against Indiana. But I thought you saw a little bit of tempo. I thought you saw them spread the ball out a little bit. The most important thing is I think you saw the ball came out quick out of Tommy DeVito's hand, and you saw them stay in front of the chains, whether it was just quick passes to Pat Bryant, quick passes to Brian Hightower. Casey Washington made some plays in traffic. I thought you saw a deeper wide receiver room, and I thought you saw an offensive coordinator and quarterback that get the ball out quickly in the pass game.
Yeah, how about the defense too quickly here? I mean, Quan Martin leading the way with 7 tackles on defense. He had 3 pass breakups. Devin Witherspoon had the interception as well. So that defense, even with a lot of replacements in that front 7, still looks like the Ryan Walters defense from a season ago.
Yeah, I think the secondary we thought was going to be a strength, even despite the losses of Tony Adams and Kirby Joseph, who are on NFL rosters right now, because Sidney Brown's pretty good. Quan Martin, the staff has been talking about all season. After a good season last year, they think he can be one of their best players. He looked like it week 1. And then Devin Witherspoon might be the top NFL draft prospect on this team. So that certainly is a strength. I thought Keith Randolph and Johnny Newton were pretty good, but I thought Calvin Avery had his best game. The one area I think Illinois would like to be better is the linebackers. I didn't think they had a great game. They didn't really pop out at any point. But Wyoming just ran the ball. They didn't do anything that exotic. And again, Ryan Walters didn't do anything very exotic, right? He didn't unleash his playbook. I think you're going to see a lot more creative, a lot more aggressive defense tonight.
All right, let's talk about this one. Now, I mentioned Bazelak versus Tuttle. It seems like it's going to be the Missouri transfer, the former SEC Freshman of the Year. What do you think, Jeremy? What have you been hearing?
From what I hear, to the people who are really tuned into this program, I've talked to a couple beat writers, they don't know. Indiana's really kept this under wraps. The one thing is Connor Bazelak seems like he would be the guy. He's thrown for 5,000 yards, 20 touchdowns in his Missouri career. Jack Tuttle, both these guys are former four-star prospects, so they got some talent. But Jack Tuttle hasn't played all that well for Indiana when he's played, but they seem to like his leadership. He took a leadership role this offseason, kind of turn around what was a really bad year for them last year. So they've had the answer for the last week and a half, but kudos Indiana. They haven't let it leak out. But I would think it's Bazelak just based on what we see on paper, but they seem to like Tuttle's leadership.
And here's the thing, if it is Bazelak, Ryan Walters knows him pretty well. They both spent some time at Missouri, so would that play into maybe some helping out the Illini defense?
Yeah, the other thing is he knows him really well, the good things he can do, but more importantly, the things he struggles with. So Ryan Walters does know those things. The other part is Andy Boo was the defensive coordinator. He's a line at linebackers coach. He was the defensive coordinator at Maryland when the new offensive coordinator at Indiana, Walt Bell, was the offensive play caller at Maryland.
Connections
so
all over.
There's some familiarity. Like, they don't know exactly what they're going to see at quarterback or the offense, but they seem to have a pretty good history of knowing at least the play caller and whoever the quarterback will be.
Yeah, you mentioned trying to rebound from last season for Indiana. I don't think anyone expected them to go 0-9 after what a great 2020 season they had playing for Tom Allen. It seems like he really gets his guys going, and it was surprising last year when that wasn't the case. Hit hard by some transfers. Penix is no longer here. He leaves and goes to Washington. So like we said, it's going to be a new situation at quarterback for the Hoosiers. But as far as vibes around the campus and around stadium from fans right now, I believe, like what you said earlier, they think that was just a blip and it's not what this program really can be.
Yeah, Tom Allen really excited this program. Even in his first couple of years, he won 5 games with a program that was so far away from a bowl game prior to him coming here. And then again, they have an 8-win season. They have a 6-win season during the COVID year. They thought they were ready to break through. Michael Penix was like the star Big Ten quarterback coming into last year. Never looked right, never felt right. He transfers out after the season. Everything went wrong. But they do have some talent. Tom Allen has recruited some talent over the last couple of recruiting classes, and now he's gone to the transfer portal. Where they really need to get better is both quarterback and the trenches. Their offensive line was bad last year, which was a surprise to them, and their defensive line was not very good. So what do we think of when we think of Brett Bielema? It's good play in the trenches. So Illinois, they need to establish themselves in the trenches on the offensive line, where they had some struggles on the interior, but they are expected to be pretty good there this year. And then the defensive line, we know they got some good starters with Randolph, Newton, and Avery, but the depth is still a question mark. So Indiana's got so many newcomers, quarterback, offensive line, wide receivers, defensive line, that they got a lot of question marks, but they do have a lot of Power 5 transfers, a lot of guys that were on some good teams here at Indiana.
Yeah, well, speaking of the beef in the trenches, I think we stayed there for now. Last week, Illinois, I'm getting the stat right. This is from one Tom Fornelli. Illini fans might be familiar with him from CBSSports.com. 50-pound difference between the Illinois offensive line and Wyoming defensive line. And that showed. Illinois was able to do what it wanted. Chase Brown had over 150 yards on the ground. This time around, I think that's going to be a little bit different, and it presents probably the first challenge of the year for the Illinois offensive line, which looked really good last week.
Yeah, and I thought they pass protected pretty well, again, against a bad team. And I thought they ran the ball pretty effectively. But if you watched up close, the interior had some miscommunication. And you don't know where exactly that comes from. Is it Tommy DeVito checking in the right protections? Is it Alex Pihlstrom, the new center? But they have a bunch of new pieces on the interior, right? Alex Pihlstrom at center. He's never played there before. Zy Chrysler in his first game had a lot of struggles coming from the JUCO level. And then Isaiah Adams, I thought, played really, really well. You feel good about your tackles, Alex Palczewski and Julian Pearl. But I thought there were some communication issues that need to be fixed, because if they're not fixed, you could have some big losses. You could give up some sacks. I thought Illinois was kind of able to work around that. Against a better team, they need to be better. That can come back and haunt them.
Will Tommy DeVito be sacked today? He wasn't last week. It wasn't the first time in his career like he had mentioned, but I believe it was just one of 5 times in his career that he was not sacked in a game. Could be different today, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, you just got a better team.
Yeah.
I think the overall takeaway, and it's kind of what my takeaway was after Wyoming, that's what you wanted to see. You wanted an easy-going win. You didn't have to show too much, but you looked like you were far better than a group of 5 team, right? We don't know much about Illinois yet.
No.
Like, we need another sample against a better team. Indiana's far better than Wyoming. They're far more talented than Wyoming. Yet, it's a team that was picked to finish last in the Big Ten East. So if you're Illinois and you want to be a bowl team this year, this is one you feel like you got to win.
Yeah, and speaking of, just one more question on the offensive line. Jordan Slaughter got in there a little bit at right guard. Zy Chrysler and him seemed like they were trading. I remember the second scoring drive in particular, Slaughter got in there and he was clearing paths for Chase Brown, which ended up with a Chase Brown running touchdown. Do you think they're going to do more of that today, Slaughter in there, more like a starting 6 on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think they'd love to rotate somebody in. I think they'd love somebody to just run away with that
Exactly,
job.
yeah.
But I did think it was notable that Zy Chrysler struggled. They obviously feel good about what he did during camp, and maybe he just needed to get his feet wet, get the butterflies, get the jitters out. But Jordan Slaughter did come in and stabilize some things. He's a guy that probably would have started games last year, but that's probably something they didn't have last year, where you have a 6th guy you feel can come in and give you starter quality reps. So as depth improves, it's good to have that in case somebody struggles, if Chrysler or Pillstrom or Adams were to struggle.
All right, we'll go to the other side of the line now for Illinois. And we mentioned a little bit already. You said that you liked what you saw out of Randolph and Newton. Avery played really well. He got in there with the forced fumble as well. Do you think that there's still even a further step they can take? Because even though Illinois didn't give up a sack, they didn't get a sack either. They didn't go out and get the quarterback for Wyoming. So there's still, it seems like, more work to be done there, especially at inside linebacker as well, too.
Yeah, I think that always needs some context because, yeah, they didn't have a sack, but Wyoming only threw the ball 21 times, and they were on rollouts a lot of the time. So you're not going to get a lot of sacks off those rollouts. I thought the biggest issue was your linebackers didn't get behind the line of scrimmage. Your linebackers gave up some big chunk runs to Wyoming. So, I mean, Indiana should be better up front than Wyoming was. They should have better athletes, though Titus Swen was a really good running back. So those are things you want to clean up is, you know, the edge guys, Seth Coleman, Ezekiel Holmes gave up some big runs because they lost contain on the outside, didn't contain the quarterback. You didn't see CJ Hart make plays last week. You didn't see Tariq Barnes flash that much. Those guys are going to have to be better. Yet, they're playing a much different offense, right? Like Indiana's a spread offense. They love to run the ball out of it. Walt Bell has in the past. But they're going to have 4 wide receivers on the field, so you could see fewer big guys on the field and a lot more defensive backs.
Yeah, and which will be interesting because a couple of those younger defensive backs, I don't want to say flashed last week. There were a couple who had some interceptions go through their fingers. Matthew Bailey is one of them.
Strain,
so they made up for it with some push-ups, just like they would have during camp. So it'll be interesting to see how many defensive backs can get in there for the Illini. Special teams, interesting part of this game, I think, as well for the Illini, because if you look at the total, it's set in the 40s. So a lot of punts expected in this one. Caleb Griffin coming off a week where he missed 2 long field goals and it's his first game as the starting kicker. I know it's weird to ask a question about special teams, but how important I think are special teams to this game in particular, Illinois-Indiana?
It's hugely important. It was a sea change last week, right? I mean, Blake Hayes is in the CFL. You got James McCourt on the Jaguars practice squad. That's replacing a lot of talent. And Caleb Griffin got his first test of being, well, the second test of being the starting kicker, and he missed 2 field goals, right? Like one of them a 53-yarder. Not going to really blame him all that much for that. But a 42-yarder, 45 and in, they need to be able to rely on him for that. And I thought Brett Bielema was trying to build up his confidence, saying he was good on kickoffs, which he was. But you want to see him bounce back because Illinois is probably going to be in a lot of close games. I expect tonight to be a close game. So you're going to need your kicker to be reliable. I thought Hugh Thornton looked like a pretty good Aussie punter himself last week. 4 punts for 46 yards. He's certainly going to be important to be accurate on his punts and help Illinois field position. You also saw Illinois be much more aggressive on returns.
I was just going to say that.
Sean Snyder, the new special teams coordinator, said he errs on the side of aggression on returns. Illinois had 4 punt returns last week. 2 of them went through Cody Case's hands, so he's got to clear that up. But Isaiah Williams had a few. They only had 16 punt returns all of last season. And then they had 2 kick returns. They only had 3 all of last season. And Peyton Vinings, I thought, a walk-on that we weren't expecting to play that role. A 43-yard kick return really set up Illinois offense well. 2 plays later, they're in the end zone. So they want to find yards there. And I thought it gives us a reason at least to watch on kickoff and punt return.
Yeah, Peyton Bonning, if he can once again have a kickoff like he just had, or he had in the opener against Wyoming, then, man, they're set up for a really good, hopefully short drive, just as we saw last week. Off of special teams now, we've been talking, in generalizations about this Indiana team. Let's talk specifically about playmakers that people should look out for in this one, names that maybe they don't know.
Yeah, they've added a lot of different guys to their offense. Sean Shivers is a big one, a running back transfer out of Auburn. Short guy, about 5'7", but 190 pounds and really fast. Illinois has to be able to contain him. I think Titus Swin might be a better back than him, but Shivers does have a lot of speed. So if he finds room to run, he's a guy who can make Illinois pay for some big plays. They've replaced a lot at wide receiver. They've added a JUCO kid. DJ Matthews is a former top 200 prospect that's come in. They're going to play about 8 wide receivers because they like to rotate 3 or 4 guys at a time on the field. So they have some playmakers, some former Power 5 transfers, some JUCOs that were pretty highly rated. They're just all unproven.
Sure.
So Indiana, talking with their beat writers just a couple minutes ago, they say, we got to figure it all out. This is the first time these guys are going to be playing together, and that's where you feel Illinois might have the advantage. They have a lot of newcomers, a lot of guys that got their first starts last week, but at least they got a game under their belts.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because on WCIA3 at 5, I talked about trying to find that balance between not showing too much in that Week 0 game versus you do have to knock the rust off. You do have to get the car moving, get it in gear and things like that. And, I think Bielema and his staff did a good job in that Week 0 game, not showing that too much that Indiana can grab something for, but still, Illinois is in season now, and they have that game week feel already.
I think that game went as well as they wanted to. I think it went perfectly to script for them because there were some issues. Like they figured out some issues about their teams that they have to address, but they also won easily, so they didn't have to show too much, but they at least showed enough to where you can figure out, okay, this is what we got to do offensively, this is what we got to do defensively, but also figure out some of the weak points and improve on those into game 2.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they show in this week. Are we going to see maybe more jet sweeps with Isaiah Williams? Like, is Chase Brown, how is he going to get involved? And, the backup running backs, we can go there as well now with the injury to Josh McCray. We know that he won't be back before the bye week after Chattanooga, which is a big loss for this Illini team because every time we're talking about the running game, it is always the thunder and lightning of Brown McCray. It's not just the Chase Brown show. He needs another face in there. It seems like they want to get another face in there. There was some good time for auditions for Chase Hayden and Reggie Love last week. Love with that big touchdown run, the heads-up play. Elbow didn't get on the ground. He got up and kept going. He didn't hear a whistle. Smart play was his first collegiate touchdown last week. Who do you think is going to step into that role, and do you think that they rotated between those two guys, or do they have one chosen?
Yeah, I think you're going to see both Reggie Love and Chase Hayden in there. I thought Chase Hayden came in, had 10 touches for 40 yards, solid. Looked a little bit more explosive than last year, but even outside of that get up and go after not hitting the ground, I thought Reggie Love showed much more burst than he had last year when he was slowed by injuries. He was really the number 2-3 back coming into last year, especially with Chase Brown was out early. It's Mike Epstein and Reggie Love getting a lot of the carries, but Reggie just never got going, had some injuries that slowed him down. I thought he showed a burst that's really good. I think we got to remember Chase Hayden and Reggie Love are both former top 500 prospects. Like they were talented, highly recruited. Wisconsin wanted Reggie Love. Obviously, Brett Bielema got Chase Hayden to Arkansas. So I think those two guys are both capable, but they're different. They're different than Josh McCray. And you don't want Chase Brown to have to carry the ball 30 times. You don't want to subject him to potential injury. But this is the deepest position they have on the field. But you don't have maybe the thunder to wear an Indiana team down. These guys are more kind of do-it-all, well-rounded backs rather than a guy who can just bowl people over.
Do you think that's going to have an effect in the play calling, the rotation, when you don't have that same type of back that Josh McCray is? Because he's really the unique one in this running back room.
Yeah, I think it does. But they also can add some wrinkles because another kid that could play today is Aiden Lawfrey.
Yeah.
Didn't play week 1, but obviously the Gibson City kid has a lot of speed. They plan to play him this week. Hank Beatty, a wide receiver, they plan on playing a little bit today as well. So you might see some more looks from those guys. First Big Ten game, I don't know how much. But yeah, a little bit. I think Barry Lonnie changes it, but at the end of the day, you do what you do, and you scheme up for the players you have, not the players you don't have.
Yeah, and it should be an interesting one because we did see a lot of those freshmen play in that Week 0 game. So which one of those guys are going to keep playing, which one just a little taste, and then you don't want to hit that 4-game mark, so you lose that redshirt status. I imagine if we see some of those guys again, I don't think there's a chance that they're redshirting, but it will be interesting to see what impact freshmen can come in and what that looks like. So as far as what Illinois needs to do today to come out with the win, Jeremy, what do you set the key as? Because, I mean, you look on paper, for me, it seems like Illinois should be favored in this one. They're not. Vegas has Indiana. Last I checked, 1.5 favorite. This one opened at 3 in favor of Indiana. But you got to prove it on the field. And these are, like we said off the top, a very important game for both teams.
Yeah, I don't think that line is crazy, especially with Indiana being at home. Should be a fun crowd in the Big Ten opener. They have some talent. Illinois has some things they need to prove still, despite a nice Week 1 win. I think you got to have good quarterback play. When you're on the road, I think you have to have good quarterback play. I think Illinois has to own the trenches tonight because I do think Indiana's going to spread them out, tempo them a little bit. I think they'll score some points against Ryan Walters' defense, as good as Ryan Walters is. But I think you got to have good quarterback play. This is why you added a guy like Tommy DeVito with all the experience he has. Can his wide receivers get separation down the field? Because I expect Chase Brown to have a good day. He's a really good player. But at some point, Tommy DeVito and the wide receivers are going to have to connect more down the field. I do expect Isaiah Williams, maybe we're talking about a little bit more after this one, because I know he had 7 catches for 26 yards, had 10 targets, but 2 of his big plays got called back last week, right? So I think he could have had a big day. They're going to get him involved. He's such a big part of this offense. And then defensively, you got to tackle well. You know, they are going to spread you out in the run game, in the pass game. You have to tackle well, and it's one thing Ryan Walters' defenses have done really, really well. So don't do what Purdue did last night. They give up some cheap touchdowns after missing tackles, but Illinois' got a good secondary that does tackle pretty well.
Yeah, and, you know, the energy, by the way, of that game was
awesome,
electric. So
Purdue fans show up.
They did.
They're amazing.
And I'm getting a good vibe out here as well. So hopefully it'll be an electric atmosphere here in Bloomington, you know, also in Indiana. I'm glad that you brought up the quarterback play because I was watching that game last night. Really good play, I thought, from both sides. Sean Clifford had some issues when he got injured, but it's not like you're asking Tommy DeVito, at least in this offense, to be that top half of the Big Ten quarterback. You just need, in a sense, a field general out there to make those throws. I agree, you need to, you know, throw down the field a little bit more. Brett Bielema said Wyoming wasn't really giving them a lot on defense where you can hit those kinds of shots. I expect that to change today, but you don't need him making those 67-yard touchdown passes.
Well, the thing Tommy did so well last week is he made good decisions. Yeah. You know, he was inaccurate a few times early in the game, seemed to settle in after that, and he just took what the defense gave him. Found his open wide receivers, and the wide receivers made the catches. I thought Tommy made some big throws, some NFL throws, whether it was the Pat Bryant touchdown, the Pat Bryant 26-yarder that was the one deep shot down the field. I don't think Illinois needs to throw 10 deep shots down the field. No. You're probably going to throw 5, right? But you got to connect on three of them potentially to really do well. But you got to stay ahead of the chains. You got to be accurate. I think Tommy DeVito gets the ball out really quickly. He made good decisions. Do that again with a couple deep shots because Indiana's going to press you a little bit more. They're going to play more man-to-man. You might have some more opportunities. But Indiana's secondary is really good. Tywan Mullen was an All-American a couple years ago. Devin Matthews is their safety that they feel is like a Sidney Brown for them. They have really good players. Jalen Williams was 4th in the Big Ten in pass breakups last year. So they're kind of a mirror of Illinois in that their secondary is a big strength of their team.
Yeah, and before we get to predictions here as we come into the end of our 30-minute pregame show, I want to say that, like I've been saying, the atmosphere here, the vibes are great. And it seems wrong that this game has not been played in 9 years, I think it is now.
Joey Wagner was asking me, have you been here? And I said, I think so, but it's been 9 years. It's kind of ridiculous that these two rivals, when it comes to basketball, huge rivalry, have not played for this long in Bloomington, and it's been 5 years since they played in Champaign.
Yeah, it's been way, way, way too long since Illinois fans have been able to visit here. And hopefully, in whatever the next wave of realignment looks like, Illinois and Indiana can start playing each other more. Although, trips out to LA wouldn't be bad either. So we'll see how that all works out. But here's my plea, hoping that Illinois and Indiana get to play each other more on the football side. So, Jeremy, I think we're wrapping up here. Let's get to some of our predictions now, kind of your last thoughts, and give us a score. Let's see how close we can get again this week.
Yeah, I think Illinois has more knowns out of these two teams. One, because they played. Two, because I think they have a lot more returners than Indiana had a year ago. And Indiana's coming off a terrible year. Illinois is coming off a solid, made some strides here. I think Illinois got stronger run game. I think Illinois got the stronger defense. I think this game comes down to quarterback play, to be honest with you. Quarterback play, protecting your quarterback, and tackling well. So I have Illinois as a slight favorite. I have Illinois winning this game 24-20, but I think it's going to be a close one. I think Illinois fans should be confident based on what this coaching staff has done. What are they, 6-7 under Brett Bielema now? But coming on the road is difficult. And to be honest with you, Brett Bielema hasn't won back-to-back games yet. This would be a big hurdle. And if you can get to 2-0, get 1-0 in the Big Ten, and go at home to Virginia, which I think would be one of the best crowds we've seen for Illinois in a long time. And if you're able to win that, you got Chattanooga coming in. That sets up for real momentum, real feeling of excitement in this program. If you lose it, doesn't mean the season's over, but certainly building on momentum is something Illinois has struggled to do for so long in this program. Tonight would be a monster win, I think.
Yeah, I have to believe that this game is going to be so important when it comes down to the end of the season. Are you going to get to 6 wins and go to a bowl game or not? And, I think for talking holistically, there's only a few games on the schedule that I would say Illinois should not count on playing in or being competitive in. There's a couple of tough ones in there, but for the big majority of it, I think Illinois can say, hey, we want to compete in that game. And I'm sure they are behind the scenes. But this one in the end becomes so important, I think, for each side. As we've mentioned, Indiana wants to bounce back. You start that by getting a Big Ten conference win, one that you didn't have all of last season. I'm going to go, you said 24-20. You took one of my numbers, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say 24-17. Huh? I do think this one is low scoring, but I do think, like you said, Illinois has that edge. They've kind of shaken off all the rust already. They're in gear onto the season. And when the talent's so close like that, that's going to be a big difference.
And the one thing you feel like is Illinois has the best offensive playmaker on the field. Yes. Chase Brown is the best playmaker on the field. You hope he can have that kind of performance that you've seen from a Mikel Ashore, you've seen from a Rashard Mendenhall before, where he can be the guy that when you need a play, number 2 on offense can find a way, because over the last 10 games, he's run for more than, or 8 games, he's run for more than 1,000 yards. So he's been averaging more than 100 yards per game when he's healthy.
It should be interesting. This one is coming up tonight, just a few hours before. I guess we're at 1 hour now. Time is flying by. We got here just a few hours ago. Jeremy, before this game gets started in about 60 minutes, where can people spend their time learning more about the Illini and Illini Inquirer?
Yeah, appreciate it. We also have a great promo going on, 75% off for VIP sales, so let me show that for a second. You can sign up for that through Monday. We'll be here. We'll have a column afterwards. We'll have player interviews, our takeaways from this game, and everything you need after Illinois plays their first Big Ten game of the season.
Man, we're excited. I'm excited to be here under the lights, get the atmosphere going. If you're not here, hopefully you enjoyed the game from home. This one getting started in just about 60 minutes after the game. You can check out Jeremy's work. You can check out our work as well. We will have our game story up. We'll have our 3-in-1 podcast as well after the game. You can also be sure to tune in to Brett Bielema's post-game press conference. That will be right after the game is over. Give it about 15 minutes or so. We'll be right back here wherever you're watching this with Brett Bielema's full post-game thoughts from their game against Indiana. I'm super excited for this one. I'm jacked up and ready to go. We still got 60 minutes to go, but it's a fun one, Jeremy. I feel ready now.
I think he's pumped up,
guys. I'm pumped up, guys.
Big Ten football, let's go.
Big Ten football's back, that's right. Jeremy, thanks so much. For him, I'm Andy. We will see you after the game. Enjoy this one. We'll catch you back here later.